Hello everyone and welcome to another video talking geeky stuff with me, Tensi. Without further ado, I want to put a video, or a little clip I clipped together about this legendary person that this topic is about.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shigeru Miyamoto.
Pulling back the curtains, and today I'm talking about the legend himself, Shigeru Miyamoto, or I like to call him Mr. Nintendo. So with my previous video, some of you may have seen that I did a anime video on Hayao Miyazaki, in my opinion, greatest anime director. And I believe that with every kind of genre, there's always that small group of people that are at the top of their game. And with Miyamoto himself, he's at the top of his game in the video games industry. He's always been employed by Nintendo, has been there since 1977, if I remember correctly. Innovative games designer. I mean, anybody who knows games must have at least played at least one of his games. It's got to, hands down, someone's. And of course, if they haven't played this game, which is probably really rare, they must know his games. If not his games, at least one of his characters that he created. And I'm going to show you some of the characters that he did create. Here's some of the highlights that I put there. He created many more, of course. And I was saying that, how he literally revolutionized gaming. I mean, one of his first games he created was the legendary Donkey Kong back in 1981. And little known fact, well, don't know if it's a little known fact, if you're into gaming, you probably know that, he starred Mario. But he wasn't called Mario then, he was called Jumpman. It was only in 1985 when Nintendo released the entertainment system, NES. And then, of course, the game itself, Super Mario Bros. Came out, which named Super Mario. That's where he got his name. And Mario was named after one of the Nintendo employees. I think it was a janitor or something like that. I can't remember. But speaking about him, Miyamoto himself, and how he defined video games as we see it today. I mean, just look at the Mario games. Practically invented the platform genre. And then the first Zelda game, that was technically is the first open world game. I mean, people in today's industry are kind of clamoring, or especially developers and publishers, they want their own big open world game. That, and a lot of people kind of associate in today's world that when Nintendo released Breath of the Wild, they're saying, "Oh, it's The Witcher." But when you think about it, like, Nintendo did it first. Back in 1986 with the first Zelda game. But of course, slowly the Zelda game become more linear. That's cool. But I'm just glad it kind of come full circle. So you think about those two games and those kind of genres within gaming itself, the revolutionary, and how games followed on after that. And then let's remember that then the next system came out, Super Nintendo. When they introduced like Mode 7, kind of using the FX chip with the release of F-Zero. I remember F-Zero coming out on the Super Nintendo. That blew me away. I was like, wow, look at that, how smooth it was. So fast driving game. Never saw a driving game like that ever. And of course, then the Super Mario World came out, which defined platform even further. Secret passages and all that cool stuff. And Link's Awakening, fantastic game. And then of course you had Star Fox come out using the FX chip and so on as well. And then of course you look at some of the graphic styles that people, especially in the indies, indie gaming industry itself are still kind of holding on to that 16-bit kind of graphics, right? And then, of course, let's not forget as well, I mean, the Nintendo 64 come out. I know that previously you had the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation come out, and they tried it with their 3D games, but it never really fit in to me as in full 3D. You had these problems. Then, of course, in 1996 with the Nintendo 64 launch, it came with Super Mario 64. In my opinion, that literally defined 3D gaming. You know, you had a full 3D world, had a great camera angle for that time anyway. And of course, it came out with the analog stick to really initialize the 3D world, and that blew me away. Definitely blew me away. And then, of course, after that, everybody trying to emulate the 3D platform genre. Many came close. You know, you got the Banjo-Kazooies, Donkey Kong 64, great 3D platform games, but they fell short a little bit from Super Mario 64. Then, of course, Star Fox 64 came out. In UK, it was called Lightning Wars, and of course, it introduced the Rumble Pack. And of course, nowadays, every controller has some sort of vibrating function, right? It's common nowadays, very common. And of course, once you had Ocarina of Time, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time came out, which initialized full 3D, a better camera system, the Rumble Pack within the game itself for secret passages, secret levels, and so on. You know, it revolutionized kind of like action adventure games, and so on. So then, of course, not only that, he created characters like things like Luigi and Bowser, you know, famous Bowser, Toad, and Donkey Kong. All these characters are Fox, you know, even Fox himself are legendary characters. Captain Falco from the F-Zero series. I'm still holding out for a Nintendo to revisit F-Zero franchise. I'm hoping one of the next directs will, hey, we have a secret game which is the new F-Zero, because I love F-Zero GX. I mean, if you look at some of his games, he has a lot of heart to it, and I would really compare him to Hayao Miyazaki. His game does have, you know, has a lot of heart. And in some of his interview you might have read, he draws on his new experience as a child, as a kid, teenager. Just go out, explore the mountains, the forests. That's where he gets inspiration from. I mean, for example, one of his small projects was Pekin. You know, he was sort of like semi-retired from game designing and so on. He took on gardening, and he just had his imagination what it would be like to be such a little figure, you know, crash landed on Earth in the garden sort of thing. Kind of like, you know, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So that's what I love about this guy. His imagination, he goes wild. Then of course he uses folklore, like Fox was based on the Japanese folklore, like some spiritual fox, things like that. And also I think he's also that Miyamoto is like the original, how do you say it, original Mr. Delayed game, because a lot of his games were delayed if you think about it. I mean, Zelda games, for example, I mean, being a Zelda fan, I think we all kind of used to, you know, Nintendo going, okay, we're going to release a Zelda game at 2016. But you kind of got add another 2 years on there, maybe 2018, and they were masters of that. Because I remember one of his famous quotes, what, a bad game will always be a bad one. A delayed game has the potential to be good, or somewhere around that ballpark anyway. And of course, I mean, recently, what game come out that should have been delayed was 2077 Cyberpunk. That could have, you know, done with an extra year's development, right? But at the same time, I said in my previous video, and I say it again, is I think that the gaming industry needed Cyberpunk to come out and really raise the question to both developers and publishers out there and say, look, you know, in order to really see the scope of the creativity, you have to give them time to develop. And hopefully the publishers can look at it and say, yeah, they're right, you know, not only that you lost money, you lost the trust of people, you know, once you lose trust, you know, you lose your trust of your branding and so on. So that's very important. I'm glad that Nintendo was one of the first few companies to allow their creativity to be number one first, you know, and then they're willing to delay their games as much as possible so they can make games. I mean, Nintendo games are usually, in my book, always good. Even the ones that are okay are still pretty decent, you know. So I'm just hoping that a lot of developers, publishers would take a lot of what Nintendo does and let the creativity create. Give them time, give them space to do it. Don't get involved too much. And of course, Mr. Miyamoto himself is sort of kind of semi-retired. I think his last big game that he was hands-on with was Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. I think after that, he just become producer and advisor. I mean, he's got a cushy job. He's got an amazing job. He's sitting there, senior role, earn some money, doesn't have to get stressed out in developing and so on. He sits there just producing, advising, and making videos of Universal Studios and the Nintendo World, where it looks like everybody having fun. And speaking about Nintendo World, I need to go there once everything's settled down, once the borders open. Definitely one of the first places to visit is Nintendo World and see how that is. And yeah, so Miyamoto himself, legend, and as I said, he's semi-retired, but he's left a lot of his franchise in good hands. I mean, he's passed Legend of Zelda series over to Eiji Aonuma, but then again, Aonuma is kind of semi-retired as well. He's kind of taking a producer role. Then on the Mario side, you got Koizumi himself. You know, Mario Odyssey was fantastic. Even Super Mario 3D Land was fantastic. So Nintendo's got good hands, and he's kind of mentored a lot of people to take a lot of his franchises, and they are very, very capable developers themselves. So Nintendo's definitely got a good future. And as for him to be properly retired, I think he probably never retire. I mean, fully retire, because I think like all creative people out there, they never retire because their brains always working. They're always thinking of creative things to do, and you can't keep people like that down. So at the same time, I would rather him have some sort of advisory role in the background, relaxing, earning some money. But when other developers need his help, he can come in, give him help, give some advice, and make the game better. So there you go. So hopefully everyone liked the video about Shigeru Miyamoto. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. And please stay safe. Goodbye.